Hey everybody, it's Rachel. Welcome back to the channel. So let's talk about the fear of missing out. FOMO, sadly, not the kind you get scrolling past someone's vacation pictures, but the kind that comes when it feels like the whole world is toppling over like dominoes. Every time one story falls, another one tips right after it. It is so easy to feel like if you look away, even for a second, you might miss the next big collapse, something important, something tragic, something you'll wish you had braced yourself for. And that's kind of the hook, isn't it? The idea that we can't look away, that somehow if we just keep watching, we will be better prepared, safer. But in reality, all it does is keep us wound up tight, on high alert. I don't know about you, but some days it feels less like I am staying informed and more like I am just subscribing to the universe's worst notification system. And half of those alerts aren't even alerts. They are recycled panic with just a different headline. So today I want to talk about something that I think a lot of us struggle with: the sheer overload of constant news, noise, and chaos. I mean, the algorithm is pushing this stuff across my feed constantly, even though I don't subscribe to much of it. It is exhausting, it's never ending, and it feels like we can't escape it without either living under a rock or pretending not to care. And sadly, neither one of those options is realistic these days. So, what do? How do we stay informed without drowning in it? How do we calm our nervous systems when the world feels like it's running on adrenaline 24/7? And most importantly, how do we hold on to sanity and hope without slipping into denial? I have been thinking about this a lot lately because clearly this chaos is not going away anytime soon. If anything, it's getting worse, probably by design. Exhausted, stressed, and scared people are easier to control. People who are constantly overwhelmed eventually just give up. Not because they agree, but because they're too tired to keep fighting. It's not a conspiracy theory. That is history, repeated over and over again in different forms. The noise doesn't just distract us. It wears us down until we finally say, screw it, this is how it is now. And that's why this conversation matters, because we need to find the fine line between knowing enough to stand our ground, but not so much that we collapse under the weight of it. We can't ignore what's happening, but we also cannot live in a state of constant panic and fear. Let's go back to the basics for a second. Life wasn't always like this. And then somewhere in the 90s, along came Ted Turner and his damn 24-hour news cycle that nobody asked for, but apparently we had to have. Thanks for that, Ted, because clearly what we all needed was constant panic on a loop. Before that, the news came on at 5, then again at 5:30, and if you missed it, well, too bad. You'd catch the recap at 10. National news first, then local, then weather. Done. That was it. You weren't bombarded with updates every 5 minutes about every terrible thing happening everywhere. And then came the explosion of technology. This shiny new thing they called the web, and suddenly the world connected in ways that made it feel both smaller and louder. What started out as this cool and powerful tool to connect us really quickly turned into everything everywhere all at once. Honestly, I miss when the world felt big but not crushing. When the worst thing you heard about was whatever made it into the evening news. Not that things weren't happening, they just weren't shoved in your face 24/7 with breaking news banners designed to spike your adrenaline. Now, everything is urgent. Every headline is breaking. And let's be honest, most of it isn't breaking, it's just broken. FOMO is the sneaky trap in all of this. That fear of missing out. It's the voice that says, what if this one update is the one that changes everything? What if I don't know what everyone else knows? So we keep checking, and checking, and checking. But that fear doesn't protect us. It keeps us on edge, feeding our anxiety, tricking our brains into thinking we're being responsible when really we're just being hooked. FOMO is like an IV drip of adrenaline, and eventually it burns us out. It's no wonder we're anxious. Our bodies are marinating in adrenaline 24/7. I mean, adrenaline is great if you're running from a bear, but it's a terrible long-term diet for your nervous system, which unfortunately is how most of us are living right now. Our brains were not built for this. We weren't meant to carry the weight of the entire world's crises on our back, in our back pocket, vibrating with all these notifications all day long. That is why anxiety rates are through the roof. You know, we talk about that fear of missing out, but what it really does is push our nervous systems into overdrive. Every buzz, every headline, every must-see-now story is like a shot of adrenaline. Our bodies think we are running from that bear when really we are just scrolling on our phones. And half the time, it's not even because we're worried. It's habit. Our thumbs go there before our brains catch up. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's just the rhythm we've trained ourselves into. Either way, keeps us in the loop, and in the loop we stay, keyed up. Now, y'all know I love philosophy, and while I lean on it a lot, I don't want to just recycle the same lines. So let's think about it this way. The Stoics taught us to focus on what's in our control. We all know that one. But modern philosophy and psychology remind us that it's not just about control. It's about attention. Where we put our focus shapes our reality. What we feed grows. If all we feed ourselves is the chaos, the fear, and the noise, that is the lens we see the world through. It reminds me of something I read recently. I don't remember where. That attention is the most valuable currency we have. Everyone is fighting for it. News outlets, politicians, advertisers, social media platforms. They don't care if you're hopeful or hopeless, as long as you are hooked. And fear, it's a pretty powerful hook. Modern thinkers call this the attention economy for a reason. Whoever holds your focus controls your emotions, and whoever controls your emotions controls your choices. And when you look at it that way, choosing where not to place your attention is just as powerful as choosing where to place your attention. So, part of our survival is learning to guard our attention as fiercely as we guard our health. Because in a lot of ways, it is our health. Hey! Leave the squirrel alone. Sorry. So, like I was saying, because in a lot of ways, it is our health. I'll say it in every video until you are sick of hearing it. Mental health and physical health aren't separate. Chronic anxiety floods the body with stress hormones that wear down your immune system, strain your heart, mess with your digestion, and even change how your brain functions. This isn't just about peace of mind. It's about survival, in the truest sense. This is where JOMO comes in instead of FOMO, the joy of missing out. Not isolation, not ignorance, but the relief that comes from realizing you don't have to know everything all the time. The world doesn't collapse if you don't check your phone for an hour, or an evening, or, brace yourself, even a whole weekend. I will do that whole weekend thing every once in a while, and my God, is that an amazing feeling. JOMO is about intentionally choosing less, so you can actually live more. Less noise, more clarity. Less scrolling, more meaning. It's a shift from being yanked around by every headline to calmly deciding this is what matters to me. The rest can wait. And honestly, JOMO feels a little rebellious. I even like the sound of it, you know? It's saying no to the chaos that wants to own you. It is a quiet, joyful protest against the idea that you always have to be plugged in. The joy of missing out isn't about pretending the world is fine while you live in a cabin off-grid making sourdough starters. And for the record, I am not dissing sourdough starters. I have one. Its name is Dobie One Kenobi because we are nerds. But we just call it Dobie. Anyway, the joy of missing out is about realizing the world will keep spinning even if you don't refresh the news every 5 minutes. I have tested this theory, and so far, the universe has not collapsed. But missing out can get tricky because it's not as simple as saying just turn it off. We can't. I mean, we have responsibilities. We live in communities. We vote. We parent. We care for other people. And we make decisions that affect our futures and our kids' futures. We can't just ignore everything and hope for the best. This is where that fine line comes in. The line between enough and too much. Between being awake and aware. And being so consumed that you can't sleep at night. Between information that empowers you and information that paralyzes you. And the reality is, that line is different for everyone. For some people, it might mean checking the news once a day and then stepping away. For others, it might mean reading full articles or well-researched stories instead of scrolling the same 5 headlines over and over. It might mean focusing more on what's happening in your community where you actually have influence instead of trying to process every global disaster as if it were yours alone to fix. Because we forget we are not built to carry the weight of the entire world. We're built to live in tribes, to care for our families, to plant our gardens, to tend to our communities. The World Wide Web expanded our awareness, which can be absolutely amazing. But it also tricked us into believing that awareness equals responsibility. It doesn't. Awareness matters, but drowning in it doesn't help anyone. So, what do? We start by reclaiming our attention. We put boundaries around our intake the same way we do with food, exercise or work. Just like you wouldn't eat fast food for every meal, you don't need to consume headlines for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We notice when we're scrolling out of habit or boredom, and we stop and ask ourselves, am I doing this because it matters or just because it's what I do? That is enough to loosen the hold. We stay awake to what matters without burning ourselves out on what doesn't. That might mean choosing 1 or 2 trusted sources instead of 10. It might mean stepping outside and touching some actual grass instead of doom scrolling for the 50th time that day. And we remind ourselves often that the chaos is not going to disappear. I'm sorry, but the noise isn't going anywhere. It may even keep getting louder, but we don't have to let it own us. Here is the hope part, because I know this sounds heavy. The world has always been chaotic. Every generation has had its storms. The difference now is the volume knob is cranked all the way up, and it feels like we're drowning in it. But we humans are pretty adaptable. We've survived wars, plagues, collapses, and dark ages, and we can survive this. Not by gritting our teeth, but by actually choosing how we live inside it. We can still find beauty, even in the chaos. We can still build meaningful lives, even in the noise. We can still laugh, and we should, because humor is one of the best survival tools we have. Do not feel guilty about laughing and enjoy yourselves. And we can still protect our health, our hope, and our communities by refusing to let the noise decide who we are and how we live. So maybe this is the invitation. Let go of the fear of missing out and start embracing the joy of missing out. Stop chasing every headline and start savoring what is right in front of you. Because missing out isn't really missing out. You're not missing life, you're reclaiming it. You're trading noise for peace, fear for calm, distraction for meaning. And in a world that profits from your panic, that's one of the best choices you can make. And if you're exhausted, if you feel like you're one headline away from a breakdown, know this. You're not weak, you're not failing. You're human. Your nervous system wasn't built for this world of constant noise, but you can learn to live in it with boundaries and intention, and with hope. If you're still with me here, let me know what you think. Agree? Disagree? And give me a follow if you like these little chats over our coffee. Thanks for watching. Take care of you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.